the infection being this literal form of rabid rage. But like beyond that, the basic idea of, you know, doing this sort of post-apocalyptic bleakness and sort of loneliness, or doing this, you know, zombies are this morbidly gruesome manifestation of our, you know, animalistic warmongering behavior. He's like, this is all stuff you've seen in this genre before, and I'm not reinventing the wheel. But what they are is making it, reinventing and stylizing how an environment like this might look, how it might sound, how it might feel. And for that decision, Danny Boyle did the most important thing they could have possibly done in this movie, which is that he actively pursued a man named Anthony Dodd Mantle. And these two would basically become lifelong friends and collaborators. Anthony Dodd Mantle basically shot half of Danny Boyle's career as a result. I think part of what Danny Boyle did was that he got the cheat code of hiring just one of the coolest cinematographers to ever live to want to make movies with him all the time, which is something that's always very helpful for you. But Anthony Dodd Mantle, for anyone who is unfamiliar, is a pioneering force behind the transition from traditional 35mm shooting to digital cameras, which you might think, as 20th century genre film purists, we are like, send this man to prison instantly. But I don't feel that way about a lot of the early digital guys, because I think when they were experimenting, it was coming from a good place. They didn't know where the industry was they didn't know what the studios were going to do with the things that they were doing or whatever. And,
that's an incredible example of that. Like, I mean,
exactly. Like
if because of it.
If we had stuck to this like really lo-fi digital videotape kind of look, I think there could have been much more experimentation. There were some other filmmakers who ended up doing this. I mean, David Lynch shot Inland Empire like this. Michael Mann, obviously incredibly famously, switched to shooting this, partially, I think, inspired by Dodd Mantle, because Dodd Mantle was one of the earliest names behind it, who saw digital video not as a way to achieve, like, to mimic or replace film. He saw it as there are unique new types of images that we can get out of this. And he was behind a number of the Danish avant-garde Dogma 95 movement with filmmakers like Lars von Trier and Thomas Vinterberg. The 1998 film The Celebration is one of the big ones for them. They won the jury prize at Cannes for a film shot on Sony mini DV cassettes, which is insane. But he also did a film for Harmony Korine called Julian Donkey Boy, which I highly recommend looking up for anyone who hasn't seen that Harmony film, because I think it's one of the most astonishing looking. It's crazy. Also did Dogville for Lars von Trier, which is shot on similar sort of cameras to this. And so Boyle, to his credit, he saw the incredibly striking and vivid, almost like smeary, hazy painting that this guy was doing with consumer grade camcorders, essentially. And he says, I'm going to bring some of that sort of ugly looking reality to a studio horror film. And that is how we got the unique look of 28 Days Later, which is just, for me, it's mesmerizing. The camera you were looking for, the Canon XL-H1 is what they shot it on. And in the oral history, Mantle described it as a very inferior quality imaging camera, but it had a unique shutter facility that they messed around with to get this incredibly frantic shutter effect that the movie had. And he said when he first showed it to Danny Boyle that he just lost his mind. He was like, this is incredible. It's brittle. It's savage. It's hectic. It has this almost like the way that it captures movement in these kind of imperfect ways. He said it legitimately made him feel like he was looking at like what like demonic footage would probably look like if he saw it. And he said that is perfect for how we're going to shoot like the action sequences with zombies in this. And as a result, this movie looks like no other movie. It operates like no other zombie movie you've seen. And it's why it's, one of the better examples of the genre.
Yeah, absolutely. And including like when I think Zack Snyder kind of copied a lot of this way later with his remake of Dawn of the Dead, where the zombies are like screaming and running and sprinting at each other. Like this directly comes from 28 Days Later, I believe. And you could also, like I was mentioning it before, I can't particularly remember the entirety of the physical, how people move in the Crazies, but I know that they're not like slow zombies. So I know that they're attacking people. So there has to be kind of something to do with that Romero was doing in the 70s already, where it wasn't like, just moaning and moving at 1 mile an hour. So there's like ideas of it, but this one I think is the first time you see that full on rage-filled sprint where these infected aren't really thinking about anything.
It's definitely the most popular and influential, if it's not the first, because like every zombie movie you saw after this that isn't trying to reference the old slow zombies is functionally doing this, where it's like sprinting athlete animal zombies. It's crazy.
Right. And now what it really did too is because it delivered this to us, it's kind of like it created a new generation of fear for zombies, to the point where I feel like for a lot of people, they can't go back to the slow moving ones unless it's like satirical or saying something about the era that it was made in or something like that. It feels like that, you know, that fear of just the dead being risen has been stripped, because now we've seen this like rage-induced ruthlessness where the zombies are like, you know, throwing projectile vomiting blood because of the infection.
I actually forgot about that image of the projectile vomiting blood, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that is just
crazy.
Disgusting.
And then the thought too that they're not dead, that they are actually alive, gives you the thing of like, well, is this one of those things where it's like it's almost like a parasite where you can't control yourself, but you're like you understand what's going on. It's just that your brain doesn't allow you to control, so you're just killing everything in sight. Which it never says that, but there's just these implications because eventually they get to stuff like, you know, are they going to starve to death? Which would imply that there isn't like a supernatural element to this. It's just rage, and that's it. It's like super strength and rage. So yeah, like all these new rules are great, and the way that Boyle uses the camera for that.